Let's kick this one in the guts. We are rolling. Brothers and the occasional sister, welcome to the Bro Check Club. Does the full moon affect you? I know for a fact it affects me, but is that just placebo and in my head? Dunno. There is some research that suggests that on a full moon, crime rate goes up, that there's more accidents and accident emergency, but then there's other studies I've read that say there's no correlation at all. So the jury's not out on that one. For me personally, I feel that a full moon changes things. I certainly like hunting on a full moon, and I'll probably get a copyright strike for this little bit. Got the song? Well, I see a bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I hear hurricanes and lightning. Whole lot of trouble here today. Well, I say, don't go round tonight. It's better take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. I better stop there, otherwise I will get a copyright strike if I haven't already. Anyway, point being is that on a full moon, it's a bloody good time to get out, have a hunt, take the dogs for a walk, or just be a little bit different, a little bit funky, try some different stuff with your life. A full moon for me definitely affects how I feel. And I don't believe that it is placebo. I have noticed it when I'm out fishing. I like going out my kayak when it's a full moon and fishing in the moonlight. I like hunting. I find I'm more stimulated. You could argue, well, it's because there's a whole lot more light and you can see everything. Well, that might be true, but I believe, and this is only my belief, and it's not necessarily right, I believe that we evolved, particularly us men, to be hunters and collectors and gatherers. And back in the day when we didn't have a little flashlight on the top of our head or a phone with a torch in it, we used to go out and harvest a lot of stuff when it was a full moon. Our senses would be more awakened, our testosterone would go up, and we would be more in fight, flight and hunt mode, ready to either predate on something or be prepared to be predated on by other predators. So I think on a full moon it affects us. But that again is only my my little theory in my head. And the reason I have this theory is it affects me. With lying in bed at night, if I'm not doing something on a full moon, I don't sleep as well. I can be restless all night and tossing and turning and tossing. Less tossing, more turning, you know what I mean. Maybe there is a bit of tossing going on too, but definitely it keeps me awake. This fire is pumping out too much heat. I'm going to have to change this top. I'm too hot. I've just come in from doing the big walk with the dogs. 3 walks a day. Each walk takes 30 minutes. It's an hour and a half. Plus I've been mountain biking, chopping wood. A very, very physical day, and my blood's too hot for this fire, so I'm going to go and put something lighter on and come back to you. This is too hot. Putting the old Clay Tool Stories singlet on. I didn't make many of these. I think a handful gave most of them away to mates, but that's a bit cooler and a bit further away from the fire. So, full moon affects us blokes. I wonder if women have the same thing, because women traditionally haven't been hunters. Maybe it changes them. Maybe it makes them more docile so they sleep so we can go and do our hunting and gathering. Or maybe it doesn't. So if you're a sister, comment. Let me know. Does a full moon keep you awake too? Actually, it probably doesn't do that, because women used to be an integral part of hunting. The way it used to work when we were on the savannah plains is the men would chase down animals, because humans can sweat and animals can't. And this is not a theory, this is actually a fact. You can actually do some research on this. And the man that was the fastest of all was also the man that got to do most of the mating. And maybe that's a reason today why men enjoy hunting. Maybe they think subconsciously, or don't think, maybe subconsciously they feel that if they're a good hunter, they'll get mating rights. So what would happen is 3 or 4 men in a group would go off and they'd see the animal, it might have been an antelope or a gazelle, and they start doing this. They start running, and it's hot on those plains, and they run, and the animal to begin with is way faster and way more powerful, and it gets away, and they keep going, and it stops for a while and rests, but they keep going, and they sweat, and when they sweat, they cool themselves. They sweat under their armpits, and you've got these hairs under your arm that hold the moisture in, and beads will go down of sweat down your brow and the side, and as you're going through the air, it's like a radiator on a car. It's water passing it The evaporation causes a cooling mechanism to the body. It cools off the internal organs and the external. But the animal doesn't sweat. So the men keep on running and they sweat, and God knows they would have drunken a lot of water because they know what they're doing. And eventually, of the men, one of the men will be fitter than the rest. I don't know why I'm holding a harmonica. I wasn't going to play a song. I just picked that up. I might play a song. They would keep on going, and eventually one man would start to show dominance over the other men, and he would get in the lead. And he would keep on going, and they might chase that animal for 6 hours. They could do that. Why do you think it is the Kenyans always win those long races? They've got centuries of actually training and running stuff down. They've evolved that way, and there's still tribes today that do it. So finally he gets to this gazelle that's been running for 6 hours and stopping, and they keeps on going and runs a bit further, and every time it sprints it goes a little bit less, but he just keeps on going, and he's cooling himself. But that animal eventually is starting to cook its internal organs, particularly its kidneys. The internal organs are starting to cook, and it's now starting to become exhausted, and it can no longer keep on going, and it's got to stop. He's carrying a spear. He goes up. He's literally next to the animal and gives it the coup de grace, sticks it in the heart, and then opens up the guts and probably takes out the liver, which he probably eats himself first because it's got the most nutrition. And his band of merry men are tracking him, and eventually they come to him. And when they get there, he's got the first cuts and he's got the first rights, and the woman would come behind. So the woman probably are not sleeping on a full moon. They're probably wide awake too. And I'm not suggesting that they necessarily hunt in the full moon. They might be doing this in the light of day. But women definitely played an integral part of hunting, because the meat had to be carried back to the village to feed the children and all the other women. And not all the men did that. In fact, more likely it was the woman did the hard work. Men go, oh no, but women would carry. And they carry on their heads. They put it up on these big things. And I've seen pictures, like old pictures done of them carrying on their head and back to the village. Women have never been designed to carry large weights like men, so it would have been a lot of women. Men can carry a lot more heavy weight. Simple reason being is that women have a hole between their legs, whereas we have a appendage hanging there, and that hole can prolapse. And even today, a lot of older women that have spent their lives that are working on farms or hunting and doing that physical life often have prolapses down here, and that's because of the anatomy. Women are designed for carrying children and babies, not children. Babies, maybe children to a certain age, but not a lot of heavy weight. And that's just a physiological fact of the way that women are made. So that possibly would suggest that they don't have any difference to the full moon. But I am guessing that most of you men watching this are affected by the full moon. I definitely am. Your thoughts below on this? Through the week, well, last week we had some really good themes and things, and one of the things we talked about was when men and women go their own way, or there is disruption in the relationship and there's children involved, and how this affects our kids. Forget about our adult feelings and how it affects us, but how and what are we doing to our children? And for sisters watching this, and if there are any sisters watching this that want to put their 2 cents worth in, remember this is a domain for men, so please put something in that's helpful to men. We're not trying to help you women, because there's ample stuff out there for women. There's very little stuff for men. That's why I created the Bro Check Club. There's ample forums for women. There's all these different sites and women's refuges. You're going to find a lot more women refuge around for men's refuge. There are men's refuge, but there's a lot more stuff in place for women. Men, more often than not, get the system doesn't work for us, particularly as far as when it comes to custody and children. But we want to think about, as bros on this Bro Check Club, what it is that we could do to find solutions. So for brothers that are younger, that have got children, how men can get through, because so many men give up and often even take their life. It's happened. They see the breakdown in the family and they feel powerless. The system that doesn't work for us men makes them powerless. The women get all the power, they get the children, and the children lose out in the end. The women actually lose out too, because quite often, more than not, later on, when the children have grown and they become adult, they turn against their mothers because they realise what's happened and they feel bitter that they were actually denied the contact with their fathers, particularly young men. Maybe not so much, I can't speak for women, but having grown up with a situation where I didn't see my dad, regardless of who was right or who was wrong, that left a big void in me, and I needed to have that. And that is one of the reasons probably today why I'm driven in helping young men and spend virtually every weekend taking young men either hunting or fishing or doing some sort of mentoring work with them, because I grew up myself from the age of 10 till, well, from 10 onwards I didn't have a dad around. My parents broke up at 10, and I had a big void, and I didn't have a male role model, and consequently I had to learn myself, which was tough and difficult. Had I had just one male in my life back then, it would have made my life a lot easier, because in learning yourself, you grow up tough and you end up making stupid mistakes because you just don't have that male role model to put you in the right direction. So many young men, particularly the age of 13 and 14 or even younger, are looking for male role models. When the partner goes, you're not seeing the children, if she does that, particularly around the age there, the damage that she is doing to those boys particularly, and women, is something you can't take back. Now, in a situation where the man is being obviously neglectful or abusive to the children, then yes, by all means, remove the man from the situation. And vice versa if the woman's doing it too, because plenty of women can be violent, plenty of women can be neglectful, plenty of women can be abusive emotionally, mentally. In fact, I would say that the worst type of abuse often comes in the form of a narcissistic parent that gaslights a child all the time and shuts them down and actually makes them think that they're not well, or they're not right, or they're not healthy in the way they are. And this can often be just as damaging as it can to someone that's physically abusive. I think it's equally. And on the other flip side of that, I also think that a parent that completely disregards their child and doesn't even acknowledge them, like blanks them and cuts them off or is indifferent, I think that there is also damaging. I think it can be equally as damaging. There has to be a sort of a balance, sort of like the Goldilocks syndrome. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. Pressure and release. This fire is cooking me still. I've just gone to my singlet. It's I think it's because my blood's still pumping too much. I've had quite a full-on day. It is cold because it's snowing and it's cold outside, but I'm just overheating still. Definitely probably should have gone and had a shower before I did this. Anyway, your thoughts. These are only my thoughts, and as always, I could be wrong. I could be wrong on this, and I'm really open to you guys putting your 2 cents worth and saying what you think about this, including sisters that have been in a situation. I know it's really difficult for young people today because young families, particularly in New Zealand and our economy and our environment, just working, putting food on the table, paying the bills, paying the mortgage or paying the rent. It's bloody hard yakka. And then on top of that, you've got all the other stuff of emotional. Are we compatible together? Is mum and dad getting along? Is mum's needs being fulfilled emotionally? Is dad's needs being filled emotionally? It's just so difficult to get everything balanced right at the end. Sometimes when the cracks start to show and everything breaks down, and it's just not too much. And in the end, there's no real winners if the parents break up. I still do maintain, though, that if there's a very, very bad situation where there is abuse or there is neglect and there is something really unhealthy going on between the two parents and the kids are being subjected to that all the time, then it just might be better to say Auf Wiedersehen to each other and come to some deal where you share the kids half time, because children shouldn't be subject to our adult shit. They don't need that shit. On Wednesday last week, I went hunting with one of the young fellas that I've been looking after since he was 13, young Jody Stoll, and it was an awesome hunt. we ran into a lot of trouble. We couldn't get across a river. Actually, Jody could, and I would have got across. I actually had a life jacket on. I actually hunt with a life jacket on. I don't know if it's got here to show you. Oh, here we go. I hunt with a life jacket because river crossings are one of the main causes of guys dying when they go hunting, particularly us filthy pig hunters. So that is my setup. So I want to show you, brothers, this. It's a very light life jacket, and on it I have a kit here which is for the dogs. You've seen those if you're a pig hunter. It's got all the suture kit in there so you can stitch your dogs up. It's got C-lock, so if you have something which is bleeding out, you can actually stop the bleeding. It's got everything you need pretty much for your dogs. And I carry a knife which I've taken off there up high, so I've got a knife I can quickly get if I need to do a quick kill. I've got some ammunition in here. This is solids that I carry for the 410. So I've got a wee pouch. I don't carry many, and so far I've never used them. There's the little slug that comes out. It's a 410 one, so I've got some of those. And I wear it because more often than not I find myself in a situation where I'm crossing a river. In the back, I've got a pack in the back here of things that I need. I've got some stuff that I need, medical things for myself, for my own medical challenges that I have. Painkillers in there, and some other stuff that I need since I've been through the mill, and that's just to keep myself looked after. This is my life jacket in many, many ways, but it also keeps the kidneys warm. In the front down here I can put the radio in, and my mate Richard has just bought me another radio. I'll show you what that looks like. And we've got these fantastic radios, and you can buy these, I think, on... I'm not sure if Richard got these off Temu. That's it there, but they're a 5-watt job. So if you guys that are hunting, don't know if you can see the name on that there. These are brilliant. I haven't put the aerial on this one. I haven't charged it yet. I'll be using this through the week. I'll be taking another guide hunting. But they've got such better range. So you've got an aerial in there, and you've got to charge them the right way. I did have two. That one young fellow, the Jack, that I took out hunting over in Waihope, promptly lost the one that I had, and Richard kindly replaced it, which so they're like 90 or $100. He's one of the very first Good Bastards, the Good Bastard Club, that's helped me, supported me, and the young guys I take out regularly. So we've got another one. So that's just a wee tip for you guys. A little life jacket vest like this. It's very light. It keeps you warm, and you can hang things off it. And I've got a whole lot of different pockets and things that go off it. So for hunting, it's a good bit of kit to have. Works really well. But I still carry my regular knife. I still have my regular kill knife as well. But I also carry these Barco knives. The little Barco knife, if you don't know, I'll just pause and I'll show you that. I'll go and find. They used to be about $10. Made in Sweden. Now they're $20 to buy. But for $20, what do you get? You get this knife and a sheath. There's your clip so it goes in, and it's got a good locking system so it locks into your belt and you don't ever lose it. It stays upside down in there, it doesn't come out, so that's good if you're going through the bush, so you're not going to lose that. And the knife itself, well, you can see the edge of the blade is a bit rough, can't you? It's a bit bloody rough. Still razor sharp. This one's not new, but it will still cut. So what I do is I'll use this for a killing knife or a boning knife, and when I finally use it 4 or 5 times on different animals, I will then sharpen it again and gift it to one of the young fellas. So it's a good knife, and if he loses it, so what? For $20, it's going to do the job. This is a knife that, if you lose it, it's not the end of the world. I'll show you my killing knife. I am pretty sure I've showed you guys this, but I'm showing you again anyway. This was made by Crispy from Crispy's Kiwi Adventures, and I have talked about this. I still need to change the lanyard. That should be 1 piece of string rather than 2, because that can get caught and pulled out of the sheath. It's got a dual handle as far as the timber goes in it, 2 types of wood, native. And what I like about this is it's got a 3mm thick blade, so you can use it to chop wood. You can batten wood with another piece like that there, and use it as a survival knife as well. You can slash stuff. It's a very, very strong one. It is quite heavy, so if I'm doing a big mission, then I'll take a lighter knife. But this is actually a really nice piece of kit as far as a killing knife goes, and it's long enough. We really want to be very, very humane and as quick as possible when killing an animal, particularly pigs, because they are, I mean, they're an animal and they're actually a highly intelligent animal. And as big a pest as they are and the destruction they do to our native flora and fauna, they still do have feelings. So just like killing anything, you want to be really, really fast about it. And that's why I actually prefer to side stick underneath the armpit rather than throat stick. The throat sticking is not quite as fast, and I like to have a quick kill. This also affects the pH level in the meat because the animal doesn't stress and release more ammonia. Having said that, if it's got dogs swinging off it, there's a fair bit of ammonia being released because the adrenal glands and the pig, they release that as that's their fight and flight mechanism. So having a knife that gets straight to the heart and separates that, particularly gets to the heart and cuts that atrium in the heart very quick, so it's pretty fast death. I can say that I can kill a pig just as fast as a bullet when I have my knife placement right. It's a 45-degree angle, and I've got a video on my Clay Tool Stories channel about the correct way and doing the coup de grace in a way that's fast and effective. A lot of people that don't understand dog and knife hunting go, that's cruel, but actually, if you know what you're doing with your blade, you can kill just as humanely and just as quick. I have put a lot of animals to sleep straight away with just one stick. And I've also seen a lot of hunters muck it up with the animals staggering around, walking around. That shouldn't happen. It should go straight to its knees. Once you sever the atrium, which is at the top of the heart, on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, sorry, if you're up here, it'd be on the right-hand side of the heart. Once you sever that, the blood to the brain stops like that, and she's good night nursing. Anyway, just wanted to share that as part of this vlog today. Is a mishmash of things I want to talk about, and knives and hunting was one of them. We'll pause that for a minute while I get some fruit for my dessert. Oh, I don't want to completely finish the topic of hunting before I finish this. That there, you probably noticed in the background, that's my Tatonka rucksack. I've got a few different rucksacks. I've actually got the original Alpine Mac Pack, one that I had since I was 16. It still works fine. That is what I use for carrying the meat out. So I bone animals out because I'm too old now to carry a full animal out, and I've also got buggered limbs, injuries. I've got a torn meniscus, I've got bad shoulder, I've got a pulled groin right now, and so for me, carrying a whole animal out is not really an option. But a good rucksack to carry the bulk of the meat out is what I use. I still can carry a bit out for an old bugger, but that's a good rucksack if you're going to get one. And I don't have any. I'm not promoted by these guys. They don't sponsor me. I paid full retail from hunting and fishing. It's just I think they're quite a good pack. And there's other packs out there that are even better. But for me, value for your money, bang for buck, they're pretty bloody good. So if you're looking for a pack, Tatonkas, they're all right. And that's a small one. I would say I go use that for a 2 or 3 day mission. You can carry about 45 litres at a push. I've carried out whole animals broken down. I got a pig a while ago, which was about 80 pound, and it was only half full by the time I boned it out, so they're quite a good pack. Dessert. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about, we had another video in the last week about one of the young guys here. We gave him the name John. That's not his real name, and he hasn't got back to me yet. And that's okay, but maybe he does. Maybe he hasn't seen the video. But he had a heart attack at the age of 26. I've since had three people write to me. I think the oldest was 32 when he had his heart attack. And in the last 4 years, so another 3 men that have all had heart attacks in their 20s and early 30s. There seems to be that on the rise. Some people would argue that it's to do with this new experimental gene therapy used for controlling a virus that's been going around for a while. Some people would say it's to do with the poor diet. Some people would say it's the stress. Some people would say it could the economy and how this makes it harder. Some people could say it's to do with just the overall world and the way things are going with pollution, with bad stuff in the water, plastic, the nanoparticles that we're taking in all the day. Or some people could say it's got to do with everything combined. And we don't really know. There's no studies on it. But the fact is more younger people are having heart problems and heart attacks. What I know about cardiovascular disease is that, from my experience, My GP hasn't got a clue about it. In fact, a lot of doctors I have spoken to don't have a clue about nutrition. They don't understand the process of how our bodies really fight this disease, or at least stop the progression of it, or halt it, or even reverse it. They only talk about procedures like stents and operations or pharmaceutical intervention. I have not yet had one GP say to me, sit down and say, okay, tell me about your lifestyle. What stresses are you having in your life right now? Tell me about your sleep pattern. How do you sleep? Tell me about what pain you're in all the time. Are you in pain? Tell me about the amount of exercise you get on a regular basis. Tell me about what you're putting in your mouth and what you're drinking or what you're inhaling into your lungs. I haven't had one GP ever say that to me. I went to the hospital twice before I ended up finding out myself through my own due diligence, not by the hospital, by paying for a CT scan and taking myself off to see a cardiologist. I found out that I had my left anterior descending artery was occluded with non-calcified plaque and that it required a stent, according to the cardiologist. That I never would have found out because twice I got sent home from the hospital where they said to me, you've got none of the big ticket items, when in fact I was at end stage heart disease with crippling angina. So I have little faith. Now, if I break an arm, I want to go and see a doctor. If I burn myself, I want to go to hospital and get skin grafts. If I have a appendix that's going to erupt, I want to go and see a surgeon for that. If I've got prostate cancer and it's really, really bad, I want to go and see a surgeon and get that removed. But then to stop the cancer coming back or to stop the heart disease coming back, I want to manage myself in the best way possible. And I don't, and never have to this day, had a surgeon say to me, right, now you've got to start looking at your diet or now you've got to start looking at your lifestyle. I've never had that. When it's everything, your immune system relies on your microbiome. 90% of your immune system goes on your gut. But do they ever talk about that? Did we hear anything about how to best manage our immune systems during the pandemic? Did we hear about how much vitamin D we should be taking in or how much zinc? Or did we hear about the things we could do to mitigate the damage that it does to us? All we heard about was masks and getting a jab and social distancing. But do we hear about what to do to look after ourselves, to ensure that our immune systems are strong enough so then we got it and came in contact with it, we had a chance of beating it? Did we hear anything about the amount of sunlight hours that we need to get? Nothing. So I have very little faith in your general practitioner. And a mate came around today, Shane came around and said to me, well, have you talked to a doctor about this? Mate, I do not want to talk to a doctor. The only thing I'll use my doctor for is those things I talked about, a broken leg, some burns, superficial things that can be dealt with physical. But as far as chronic illness goes and repair, replace and replenish, it's lifestyle all the way. Our bodies are like a walking pharmaceutical company. There's everything in your body that you need. If you suddenly need to run to get away from that saber-toothed tiger, just around by where your kidneys are, you've got adrenal glands that will pump adrenaline through your body, epinephrine, that'll go through your body, and you'll run like fury just to get away. It's called fight and flight response. That's one thing it produces. The other thing it produces, if you're doing hard yakka, like I have been today, pheromones get released. And that's a beautiful thing. And only in the last 10 years we've discovered that our muscles are actually an endocrine system that release this hope molecule that gives us hope and gives us a really good clear thinking and makes us feel better every time you exercise. Our bodies can repair themselves. I had a torn infraspinatus and I was seeing a really good surgeon by the name of Phil Knight here, and Phil has done so many shoulders and he was going to fix us up about 12 years ago. And just by doing a little bit of work every day, I started off just lifting it like this and then a bit higher up, and eventually I'd lift it with the other hand like that, and I just lift it and then I'd do it by itself, and then I would put a piece of wood in and the piece of wood got bigger and bigger, and 10 years later now I can do it with a weight. It still hurts, but it's repaired. I didn't have the surgery, didn't have the drugs. The body can repair itself. It can knit back together. Okay, if you've torn it right off the infraspinatus, but when you've got 2/3 torn, it can grow back. Your liver, if you lose 1/3 of your liver, given the right opportunity, the right diet, In the right circumstances, it can repair, replace, and replenish itself. You grow back. The liver can actually grow back itself. You damage your eye, it grows back. You damage your mouth is one of the fastest parts of healing in your body. It will grow back. It will mend itself. And even some parts in our brain, not all parts, but some parts can repair. The neuroplasticity of our brain can start firing different ways, so we can create a completely different outlook on life and see life differently. And this piece of jelly between our ears affects all the rest of this stuff here. What does the old saying go? Neurons that fire together wire together. That means if you're thinking something again and again and again, then the neurons eventually connect up and they start making this pattern, and suddenly you have a new reality. So by having positive thoughts and putting good stuff, I'm getting well, I'm getting stronger, I'm beating this disease, this starts sending a message to your whole system, goes right down to your gut. The whole system starts to work better and you can actually become more well. But you can also have the opposite effect, which is known as the no placebo effect. You've got the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. Placebo is where doctor gives you something and tells you you're going to feel better, and it's just a sugar pill, but you don't know that. You take it and you start to feel better, and guess what? You get better because the body makes you better. But you can also have the opposite, where the doctor says, I'm sorry, but you've got cancer, you've only got like 6 months to live. You'll probably die within 6 months if you get a message like that. So we can really, really heal ourselves. And one thing that everybody has in common that survives things like cancer or heart disease, one thing they all share in common, there's a really good book on this, and I forget the name, I'd love to tell you because it's a real cracker, but they all share this one thing in common, is that they all take full responsibility for their health. Most people don't want to. Most people just want to keep on doing the same old things they've done. They want to find a bias that will support their bad habits. People like to hear support on the things that they like. This is why the ketogenic diet's so popular and the carnivore diet is so popular, because let's face it, who doesn't like eating meat? Or who doesn't like eating cheese? And people love those diets, and I was a great advocate to it until I got sick. And some days I think I should just take down all my old videos on my other channel, because I was saying, hey, the ketogenic diet is great because you know what? It makes you feel good. It really does. But a man is only as well, and a woman for that matter, as well as your coronary arteries are well. And if they're not well on the inside, then you can feel good. See, they can become up to 90% occluded and you can still feel fine. It's that last bit that kills you. So these diets, whilst there is a place for them and they do work, particularly for autoimmune problems and for obesity problems and a whole host of other problems, they should be treated like chemotherapy, used for a period of time, and then you should look at your blood markers. And on that note, men, if any of you men watching this here are sort of over 40 now, go and get the old DRE. DRE stands for Digital Rectum Examination. Finger up the bum, basically. And that's how they can find often if you've got a cancer that could kill you. And if you're a younger man with prostate cancer, then you've got more chance of it killing you than an older man. If you're an older man and they find it, it's going to be a slow-moving one. But if you get one found when you're young, you need to get that taken care of because it's growing fast. What grows prostate cancer? Well, prostate cancer is strongly a genetic disease, but it's switched on by certain genes. And those genes are switched on by foodborne stuff. And one of those foodborne things are proteins. And one of those, the main protein for it is casein. And there's literature that you can Google and have a look at, and you'll see that that's why cheese is not good, because cheese, of course, is dairy, and dairy's got casein protein, and that's why if you've got that genetic makeup in your family, I've talked about this before, you don't want to be eating any dairy at all. That was where I went wrong. Used to love the old mozzarella, balsamic and vinegar, sliced tomato, bit of basil, chop it up, bit of pepper. Oh, fuck, it tasted good. Yeah, I made a pig of myself, paid the price. Anyway, that's probably just a small amount of information for something which is a topic which needs a whole lot more, and sometimes a little information does more damage than good. Bottom line is, if you want to be well, if you want to protect yourself, it's by far better to be proactive now than try to fix a disease once you get it, because once you've got the disease, then you've got the disease, then it's game on, particularly with heart disease. Once you've got heart disease, it never goes away. You just manage it. You can halt it, and you can reverse it a little bit, although some people would argue that the occlusion going on in the lumen, that's the coronary artery, some people would argue it's only expanding, but it's still got the non-calcified plaque. It's just become calcified, and what's happening is the dilation is going on because of the nitric oxide opening it, but it's still got the disease there, and that could be true. That could be true. The reason that young people don't get a lot of heart disease is because the endothelial when you're young is so strong. By the time you're 50, it's half. By the time you're 80 years old, it's only running at 30%, 70% of it's gone. The way to build the endothelium up is to eat foods that have a high ORAC value. The ORAC value measures the antioxidant level in it, and also the other foods, of course, are ones that are high in nitrogen, like kale, Swiss chard, that's what the Americans call, we call it silver beet. Anything green, leafy, bok choy, all the beets, all those leafy greens, and the nitrogen in those leafy greens thus feed the endothelial by turning into a nitrite as they break down the crypts of our tongue, and that goes on down here and causes the vasodilation by creating that nitric oxide, which opens all those occluded pathways back up. And that's why it's important not to use a mouthwash with fluoride, because mouthwash with fluoride is 90%, 99% of germs get killed by that stuff. That's what they say it does, and they're absolutely right, it does. But of course, it also kills our really, really good bacteria that we have in there, the ones that actually we need, that are in the crypts of our tongue right down to our anus. Okay, that's enough about talking about human anatomy and living a bit longer and surviving. What else did we talk about this week? What else did we go through, man? There was a few other things. I'm just doing a recap in the week. Oh, another thing we talked about is the internet and watching our freedoms being taken away. And a few women said some really cool stuff about we don't have our freedoms taken away. We choose to have them taken away. It's a bit like land. Nobody can take our land away. You allow someone to. Well, I would argue that a little bit, that that's why we have wars and fighting, because people just come along and either stick a bayonet into you or shoot you or fly a drone into your ass and you're dead, and then you can't look after your land, you're not here, you're gone. So the internet has become a place now where we're not even allowed to crack jokes, and I think for comedians it must be a bloody nightmare, because you could get told off and fined or closed down for cracking a joke that might have hurt someone's feelings. That's a tough one, isn't it? Because we've got to the point now where we can't say anything that might be construed as offensive. The trouble with that is that all humour is based on pain. It's a very fine line. Many, many years ago, there were three guys called the Three Stooges, and their humour was based on them tripping each other up, pointing each other in the eyes. One thing was they go in the eyes, and the other guy would go like this, and the guy would stop them. That was funny. And they trip each other up or fall over. And that's sort of taking it to the absolute physical side of pain, but also things that we're a little bit uncomfortable with. Things that we say that are a little bit to do with either sexuality or sexual preference or something which might to do with race or politically quite a little bit not quite politically correct. There's where a lot of humour comes from, and we're more and more being silenced to talk about that. We're also losing our freedoms to do things like, once upon a time on YouTube, I could put a video up on how to catch a pig, how to kill a pig, how to cut the throat out, cut the arsehole out, cut the gut out, how to field dress it, and how to carry it out. I tried to do that recently and I got flagged. So I've had to cut all those bits out. So being educational now in the gathering of meat has been stopped and can no longer do it, which I find ridiculous, because it's a basic human necessity to go out and gather, whether it's fishing or meat eating or whatever you're doing. And on that note, I'm definitely not against harvesting animals for eating and fish for eating. Just because I'm on a whole plant-based diet, I'm just saying if you have heart disease, then you need to be on a whole plant-based diet. Once you've got a disease process, because animal protein is what destroys the endothelial and stops that vasodilation going on. Animal protein is what makes the disease process worse. If you don't have the disease process, have some animal protein, have some animal fat, good for you. Fish, good for you. It's just about the amount you have. And most people with a diploma in nutrition would say around 10% animal protein, 90% plant-based is the best for a long life. Of course, there's always outliers. My grandmother loved bacon, and she ate bacon till she was 150 years old, Clay. She ate bacon every day, and she lived to 150. Okay, it's an exaggeration. Somebody told me the other day of his grandmother who lived to 103, and like grease and bacon, and had every day. And yes, there's people that do. We all have a lottery, and some of us get nothing, and others win the golden lottery, where you get born with arteries that just will not clog up with anything, no matter what you eat. And the way to know that about yourself is to go and get your ApoB measured. Forget about your LDL and your HDL, or even looking at the subfractions of your LDL and HDL. Sorry, not HDL. You don't get subfractions measured. That you don't need to. We know HDL is good. Your LDL, low lipid protein. Your doctor won't tell you this because it costs money. But the thing to look at is the ApoB, because that measures the atherogenic lipids in your blood. And it might be that you're in a really, really safe zone where you can eat as much meat as fish and oil and fat as you want, and cream and cheese, and you're never going to have any plaque buildup. The other one to measure, which is not affected by that, which you're born with, is your Lp(a). So there's two things to get checked out when you go to the doctor next time to look at your lipid panel. Say, I want my ApoB measured. He'll say you've got to pay for that, because they won't pay for it, because they don't, and they should. One day they will. And the other one is your Lp(a). And you only need to get the Lp(a) measured once in a lifetime, because you can't really change it that much. It doesn't budge that much. Maybe with some PK inhibitors and some strong statins, aggressive statins, you might budge a little bit, but pretty much the liver's going to produce that. But the ApoB is important because that measures the atherogenic lipids in your blood and other ones that cause atherosclerosis. So get your ApoB checked out, brothers and the occasional sister. Get your mean, get your DRE, your digital rectum examination done, so you know you don't have prostate cancer, because you don't want that shit. Believe it, take it from me. Nobody wants that shit. Those are two things that you can do to be proactive now to stop something happening that could happen bad in the future. You'll thank me if you get it done and you find out. The other thing, of course, you can do if you don't want to finger up the bum is get your PSA measured. That measures the protein in your blood. That PSA, which is really, really important. If you are sort of got a PSA that's quite high, then there's a good chance you've got prostate cancer as well. There's a good chance of that, dare I say. The audio gateway to the brain, music. Play an instrument and it fires other neurons and you can think in a different way. Isn't that interesting? You use a different part of the brain. And that's why I like to pick up and play with an instrument when I'm having these talks, because it fires different parts of my thinking up and I think about different things. It's like a little interlude for me. It gives my brain a rest, and then I can recharge and think about something else that's of value to you to hear. Not just something for the sake of talking, but something that will offer you some value that you can take away. And right now I want to talk about, very, very briefly, I want to talk about money and finance. Having worked incredibly hard, harder than most people, most of my life, to the point that I've damaged myself as far as work goes. I mean, I've got injuries from the work I've done. I don't recommend that. But one of the things that I'll offer to you is something to get financially what you want and to get ahead, would be this little gem that was given to me by my stepmother when I was 18, and that is to live well below your means all the time when you're trying to achieve your financial goal. If you want that bike, you want that truck, you want that car, if that's your goal, then that's your goal. But everything else around before you get to that goal, you've got to live below your means. It's the only way. And it doesn't matter whether you're a sheet metal worker, a scrap metal merchant, a rubbish collector, a milkman, a paper boy. I don't think we have paper boys anymore. Whatever your job is, doesn't really matter. It's the money you don't spend that you save. And to get there, you've got to really start to do a couple of things. One of them is you've got to start budgeting. That means keeping a note of where the money's going, because otherwise you get your pay packet and it just all disappears. Things like make your own lunch at home before you go to work, rather than going and buying it at a tuck shop or at a little restaurant somewhere. Don't eat out anywhere. Make a big pot of soup, a whole lot of vegetables at the beginning of the week, just a big massive thing, cook it all up, put everything in. It might be a stew or it might be a vegetable soup, and then freeze it so you've got your packs for your lunches, and give yourself really high nutritional food rather than, so you can power up more, so you can think better, and you can really get ahead, because you're fueling this machine. You put good fuel in your car, you've got to put good fuel in you, and then you become more productive. Penny wise and dollar foolish. I'm helping out a mate right now, and I suggested he go and see somebody to get his nutrition right, and he didn't see this guy because I think the fee was $120, and that's just been dollar foolish, because once you get sick, your productivity goes right down, and then you can't produce anything. Looking after your health is the most important thing to your finance. Once you're sick, you can forget about the money coming in. You're just busy trying to survive. So keeping this machine going keeps the money coming in. Living below your means you may not have that holiday you want to have. You may not be able to buy those jeans or that shirt or that rifle or that fishing rod. Most of the things that you want are only things you want. So decide on the things that you really have to have, which are going to be things like to maintain where you live, for your work, for your health. That means you've got to pay for the dentist, you've got to pay for your doctor, you've got to pay for the what goes in your mouth is got to be at the top, like good nutrition, and you've got to pay for, if you've got a pet, then you've got to put some money aside for that. You've got to, the necessities like the power, the rent, or the mortgage if you're paying it off, all of those things first, and anything left over, that goes into your bank account, and keep a record of it. The other thing too, and one of you wrote this on here, that your father said it or your grandfather said it, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy and wise. And ain't that true? Getting your sleep. This machine that operates the rest of this machine has got to have really good sleep to function at a high level, to be productive, produce the money. So don't be sitting up at night scrolling on your phone. Once you've done your day's work, you've had your meal in the evening, when you've finished your meal, clean your teeth. You've got to look after these things. They're going to see you through your whole life. I've lost a few through fighting when I was younger, and through just bad food when I was, but mostly this one in the front here is false. It was a Paul Cube and different stuff. Look after your pearly whites. Once you've had your dinner at night, clean your teeth. That's it. That way you're not eating late at night, because if you put food late at night into your belly, then you don't sleep well. You're turning on insulin again, which is bad for your health and bad for your sleeping pattern. So your last meal is at, say, 5:30 or 6 o'clock. That's it. Clean teeth. Now you are getting ready for bed. Keep off the phone. No scrolling last minute. If you really want to have a good sleep, what I do is I'll sit up and play my guitar. I'll play my harmonica. I'll do a little bit of... Actually, I'm guilty for working late. Like last night or a couple of nights ago, I had a deadline. I had to finish the hunting video of Jody, and I wanted patrons to get it, so I was up till about 12 on the computer. But I have some glasses that have got the blue lens that stop that light going into your retina, so it doesn't keep you awake. And I was so exhausted from the hunting and the last few days, I went to bed, boom, straight to sleep. I've been really fortunate. The last 5 nights now, I haven't needed codeine to sleep because I have chronic sciatic pain. And I've been doing some new exercises that have really paid off, and seeing a fantastic woman called Dawn at Motus. She's a boxer. She's an Olympic. I think she's won a medal at the Olympic Games as boxing. And Dawn is a physiotherapist, and she's been the first person that's really given me some relief. But I've also been doing my own work too. And that's what you've got to do. Do some stretches before you go to bed. If you're like me, if you have pain, I'll crank the fire up and do a bit of stretches. And sometimes if I can't sleep, I'll have a hot shower. So getting that sleep is really, really important so you can be productive the next day. Get up in the morning. If you're a person that eats breakfast, make sure that that breakfast is healthy. Don't have anything with sugar in it, because all it's going to do is make you hungry by 10 o'clock again and spike your insulin. Have a healthy breakfast of something that's going to sustain you. It might sound funny, but it's an old thing. Porridge is great, man. Porridge is good because it does a number of things, porridge. It lowers your cholesterol. It's good for your gut. And I'm not talking about refined porridge, like a refined carbohydrate. I'm talking about the rolled oats, the big gritty ones. You want something that's going to break down slowly and feed you. Throw some blueberries in so you got some antioxidants. Don't mix blueberries with banana, because the bananas actually cancel out the goodness of the blueberries. It's a paper I read a while ago, and it actually is true. Maybe sprinkle a few walnuts on there so you're eating some good fats. And some chia seed. Chia is really good protein. If you put chia and flaxseed on it, make sure you ground them up in a coffee grounder. So there you've got a nice bit of protein. Mix that up, bang it down. Cup of coffee or whatever your drink is. Drink plenty of water, and off to work you go with a good gut. For lunch, I'd be having something that's got a slow resistant starch in it. So you're getting that release through the day. And one thing that's really good is beans. Not everybody processes beans well. It took me 3 months to get used to eating beans, but that resistant starch releases the energy through the day, so you've got plenty of energy. And today I've had a full-on day today. Like, I've physically started all day. I had a rest day yesterday. I needed a little bit, but today I've done a little workout in my home gym just to keep my strength up, because I've got to maintain it. I've been for lots of walks. I've done a mountain bike ride. The dogs have had plenty of work. I've split some wood. I haven't physically stopped all day, and I'm still not tired yet. But I've been feeding this machine the right fuel all day, putting the good tucker in. I did stop for a mate that came around for a cup of coffee in the day, so I did have a period of about half an hour of sitting and talking. But other than that, the only other talking I've done and sitting is this moment right now, which for me is still too much sitting for my liking. Sitting's like the new smoking. We don't want to sit too long. It's not good for our health. Need to stretch the body. So financial, getting ahead, those are just a few tips for you young guys that are trying to get ahead, and live below your means now, and then later on, if you do the back work, when you're an old fart like me, you'll be able to afford to buy that truck or that ute or that sports car, or buy your girlfriend a jet boat in the form of a diamond ring to put on her finger. Women love diamonds. I mean, I've actually never ever in my life bought a woman an engagement ring because I've never been engaged, but I know that women love diamonds. How's that song go? Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Is that how it goes? I think, I don't think there's too many women out there that would say, no, I don't want a diamond ring. Little small expensive gifts. Women like small expensive gifts. Anyway, I've been rattling on for a while. There was another topic I was going to talk about, but I really do need to do some other work, guys and girls, and I need to do some stretches, and my body's saying now it needs to move again, so that's enough sitting for me from one talk. I think I've been rattling on for about 52 minutes. As per usual, only my views, not all necessarily correct. Do your own due diligence. Well, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about. Hold on, I want to go and get you a book, and I'll come back to you on this. Hold on. I must apologise because this is not an edited video, and it's going to have a lot of rough bits in it. But my brother bought me this for my 60th birthday, my brother Tristan, by Mr. David A. Sinclair. He's had so many papers published. A student of Harvard University. He's done TED Talks, and this guy is the biggest fraud that I think, probably grifter, known as they called. And when I started reading the book, because I love to look at science, I started to look up other tests outside of his own stuff, scientific data, and some of them really added up, so it was very believable. But I've since been following his story online, and this is a classic one of someone who's done all these papers, and he actually ripped off a massive pharmaceutical company by the tune of $720 million, nearly $1 billion. So the science that we read out there when we're trying to find answers for our health, what we've got to look at is we've got to look at meta-analysis. That means not just one person's paper, but all the papers together, and the ones that are done long term that have the hard endpoints, like they've been going for a long time with the very definitive endpoints from a whole lot of sources. And that's why if you are going to do your own due diligence and you want to look up something as far as science goes, make sure that you use meta-analysis, like the big wide ones, because so many people, like this guy here who's a fraud, and he's literally made billions over his lifetime being a fraud. And it puzzles me because he's actually a very clever scientist, but he's actually now been exposed, and he must feel like a twat. So when you read something, as my dad always said to me, son, believe nothing of what you read and half of what you see. Nothing what you hear and half what you see, not what you read. Same thing though. What you see it, you hear it. And it's true. So you need to have a look at that. That's why I like the meta-analysis when I'm looking at stuff, particularly around diet, which is so complex. But people like him, and Harvard are just as bad. It's follow the money. And this is one of the reasons why I don't put anything in my body without a lot of long-term studies with hard endpoints. I like to have the research and see it. And I'm still on the fence about a lot of things. One of them is statins. I don't take statins. There's a lot of things, although I'm not saying I wouldn't take statins. I've been researching statins now for so long, and I flip over here and I flip back and forward and back and forward. Still haven't quite made up my mind on that one there. Of course, my cardiologist and doctor would say yes, well, at least my cardiologist, but there's still a lot more research I want to do because I want to know myself for me, and that's what you've got to do for you, not just with statins, but with anything in life. And that's a classic example of David Sinclair that managed to defraud so many people and pull the wool over so many people's eyes. And you've got massive influencers on YouTube suggesting the carnivore diet or the keto diet, and because they've got millions of subscribers, they become believable, and they actually support our bias and things that we like. So we like eating steak, we'll find someone that supports that. And you see it all the time with so many different things. But keeping an open mind and being prepared to be wrong and change is something that's really important. At the very end of all this, when you and I are no longer here, and our bodies have long broken down and they're just dust in the ground, and human race is finished and we're gone, this planet will still have one thing roaming on it, and that'll be rats. And the reason is simple. Rats, well, they have the ability to adapt, just like cockroaches. They can adapt in any situation to survive. We're pretty good at adapting too, but it's the brothers that don't adapt that will die. It's the ones that say, I'm not going to give up this, I'm not prepared to adapt to change. They're the ones that will die. So if you do have any sort of disease process, if you're not prepared to adapt and change your lifestyle, then you'll fall by the wayside. And those that adapt and change, they go on to survive. Not necessarily, but they increase their odds. We men have a really, really bad habit of doing this. I don't know if women do. I can't speak for women, but I have spoken to so many men where they get hooked on one woman. And when you think about it, there's a fuck ton of women out there in the world. I mean, what's the population of the world? Close to 8 billion? If you live in a country like New Zealand, 5 million. If you said, well, okay, of that 5 million, at least a million of them are adults that are in the sort of, I mean, it's going to be more than a million, but let's go the lowest one, say 1 million. So there's got to be out of the 5 million, there's going to be at least 1 million people that are in that age, and out of that, 500,000 of those have got to be sort of within our demographic. We go and see them and connect up with them. You've got a pool of 500,000 people, and you're stuck on one woman from a memory of the past because it was such a wonderful, sweet time with that girl. The way her hands were shaped, the way her neck was, the way her boobs looked, the way her ass was, how you used to make love all the time. All those things you did, and you're hooked on her. Switch that off and move forward and get another one because they're out there. It's one thing. I'm going to do a video on that for brothers because I've got so many brothers that are still crying, I'll never have another girl, I'll never move forward again, I can't, because they're still hanging on to the day that she knocks on the door and turns up and says, hi baby, I was wrong, we need to be together. It ain't going to happen, bros. So that's probably a video for another day. This is nearly an hour. I hope you've enjoyed this vlog. I was supposed to finish a while ago, but I've rattled on a bit longer. Apologies about that. Now I've probably blown the copyright with those songs, they're not mine. Hey brothers, if you know a brother who's struggling with anything in this life, check on him and just go and see him and help him out. Might be just simply leaning in the ear and talking and say, hey, how you doing, bro? Been thinking about you. Is everything okay? Because no man is an island. We all need each other. And I hope this day finds you blessed. And the full moon doesn't keep you awake tonight and you got some sleep. Much love, and I'll see you in the next Bro Chew Club video. Go steady. See you later.